What do you call a potato with right angles? A square root. A square root. Alrighty, boys and girls, welcome to video 1-2, our second video in Unit 1, our video on absolute value equations. Alrighty, well, let's do this. Okay, let's just do a quick little review here what absolute value means. Remember, absolute value is always positive, and the reason for that is because the absolute value of a number x is defined as the distance of the number from 0 on the number line, and distances are always positive. For example, just because you drive backwards or drive negative doesn't mean you put gas back in the tank. Okay, and this is actually not true. I don't know how this got on my slide, but it did. This should say for any real positive number, A, or for any real number, 0, for any real number that's not negative, for any real number, non-negative number A, the absolute value of A is itself a positive. The absolute value of a positive is equal to itself, and the absolute value of a negative is equal to its opposite, the positive. So, let's look right here. What is the value? Or let's solve for x. What does x equal if the absolute value of x is 5? We know x equals 5 or negative 5. And the reason for that is the absolute value of 5, of course, is positive 5. And the absolute value of, I didn't mean to write that. The absolute value of negative 5 is also equal to 5, to positive 5. So the absolute value of x is equal to 22, x equals 22, or negative 22. If the absolute value of x is 1/2, yes, very good. X equals 1/2, or negative 1/2. And the absolute value of x is equal to negative 7. You want to say, oh, plus or minus 7. No, 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 no. The absolute value will never equal a negative. So therefore, there is no solution. If the absolute value of x is equal to a negative, there is no solution for x. Okay, solving absolute value equations is not hard. It's just twice as much fun. It's twice as much fun because you get to solve two equations. Okay, so the first step when we solve an absolute value equations is always to get the absolute value by itself. Get the absolute value expression by itself first. Once you've done that, create two equations. Remove the absolute value bars and set what the absolute value expression to both the positive and the negative. Solve both equations. The values are one or the other. And be careful here. Sometimes if there are x's both inside and outside the absolute values, there might be extraneous solutions. Check to make sure that your answers meet the criteria of the original problem. So let's do one together here. We have the absolute value of x minus 25 is equal to 17. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the absolute value by itself. And hey, the first step is done. The absolute value expression, the whole absolute value is actually by itself. There's nothing else with it. So now we're going to just break this up into two equations. Step 1 was done. So now we're going to say that x minus 25 is equal to 17, or x minus 25 is equal to negative 17. Remember, the absolute value is going to have two possible answers, the positive or the negative. So let's solve both of these for x. I'm going to add 25, add 25. So x equals 42. Add 25, add 25. X equals, don't tell me, negative 17 plus 25 is 8. Notice now, x is equal to 42, or x is equal to 8. Let's check to make sure that these work. Let's go back to my original equation. If x is 42, I have 42 minus 25 is 17. The absolute value of 17 is 17. That works. Or if x is 8, I have 8 minus 25. 8 minus 25 is negative 17. The absolute value of negatory 17 is also 17. So both of those equations worked. Just remember, when you solve for the absolute value and you get the absolute value is equal to a negative, there will be no solution because absolute values are always positive, or they can be zero. Okay, but zero or positive, they can never be negative. So an absolute value equaling a negative has no solution. Looking at equation numero dos, once again, we're going to solve for the absolute value. The absolute value is already by itself, so quite simply, I'm going to take this equation, drop the absolute value bars, and solve it twice. Once with the positive side, once with the negative side. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and solve that. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So on the left side, multiply by 2. That's going to get rid of my fraction. So I have x minus 3 is equal to 18. Add 3, add 3. X is going to equal 21. On the left side, or on the negative side, again, I'm going to multiply by 2. I have x minus 3 is equal to negative 18. Add 3, add 3. So I have neg 15. So again, I have x is equal to 21, or x is equal to neg 15. Plug those both in, and they both work. For example, if I plug in the negative 15 now into here, I can get negative 15 minus 3 is negative 18. Negative 18 divided by 2 is neg 9. Absolute value of neg 9 is 9. Okay, let's try this one. Once again, I'm looking at my absolute value equation. I have the absolute value expression, m minus 2. Absolute value of m minus 2 is already by itself. So I'm just going to break this equation up into two, the positive and the negative. So I know that m minus 2 is equal to 2m minus 10, or m minus 2 is going to equal the negative of 2m minus 10. Okay, so we're going to dis that neg on the left-hand side. Well, let's solve for m on the first side. So I'm going to actually minus m on both sides, and then I'm going to do it in one step, plus 10, plus 10. So now I'm going to have 8 is equal to m. So m is equal to 8. Or, on this side, I have m minus 2 is equal to negative 2m plus 10. I'm going to distribute that neg. So I'm going to add the 2m to both sides. I'm also going to add 2 to both sides. So now I have 3m is equal to 12. M is equal to quattro. Okay, so it looks like we have m is equal to 8 or m is equal to 4. Let's double check these, because in these particular cases, sometimes when you have a variable both inside and outside of the absolute value, you may get extraneous solutions. Let's check 8 first. 8 minus 2 is 6. The absolute value of 6 is 6. So this is 6 is equal to 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 10. 6 is equal to 6. This first side works just fine. Let's try the 4. Okay, if I do 4, I get 4 minus 2 inside the absolute value. The absolute value of 2 is 2. On the second side, I get 2m. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 10 is equal to neg 2. So now I have an equation of 2 is equal to neg 2. So the m equals 4 was an extraneous solution. That side didn't work, and it's junk. J-U-N-K. Junk. Okay, you guys try these two problems real quick right now, yourselves, all by yourself. I'm going to walk away and stretch my legs a little bit and come right back. Okay, on the first one, you should have had x equals neg 7. Okay, our absolute value was already by itself, so just set it equal to itself and its opposite, so x plus 7 is equal to 0, or x plus 7 is equal to negative 0, and of course negative 0 and 0 are the same thing, so basically you don't need to solve this twice, just don't bother with the right hand side. So quite simply now we subtract 7 from both sides. X is equal to neg 7, which when I throw it back in here, neg 7 plus 7 is 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. So it works. And I'll be honest with you, as long as you did your algebra correctly, as long as there's no variable outside the absolute value, when you solve the absolute value equation, both answers will work. Okay, if you did this one out like I just did, you wasted some time, but let's see what happens. First of all, looking here, the absolute value is already by itself. The absolute value of 3/4 x minus 5 is equal to neg 4. So we set this up into two equal problems. 3/4 x minus 5 is equal to neg 4, or 3/4 x minus 5 is equal to negative 4, which of course is positive 4. Right away I'm hoping, oh, an absolute value is equal to a negative. Impossible. Impossible. The correct answer should be no solution, and you're all done. Don't do anything. But if you go on and you solve these like you would have because you weren't being careful or you weren't looking at the negative, when you do this, we're going to get on the positive side, x is equal to 4/3, because I add the 5 to both sides. I add the 5 to both sides, I get 3/4 x is equal to 1. Multiply by 4/3, I get x is 4/3. When I put that back in here now, I get 3/4 times 4/3 is 1. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is not negative 4, so this side is actually junk. On this side, when I solve it, I get x is 12. When I plug 12 back in here, I get 3/4 of 12 is 9. 9 minus 5 is 4. The absolute value of 4 is not negative 4. So again, this side is junk. Neither side is going to work. But if you notice that right away we had an absolute value is equal to a negative, the answer is no solution. And you don't need to do all of that work. All right, folks, that's it. Have a great day, and we shall talk to you soon.